Hello and welcome to commentary for part 4 of High Performance Imports V9. This is a trip out to YZ Circuit near Gifu City. I remember for this one I took a train to Gifu and then rented a car, and I didn't have a map for that area, and back then the only navigation system I could get was in Japanese. Luckily, the circuit's name starts with YZ, so that was easy enough to pull up in the navigation. On the way back, luckily, I was able to recognize the kanji for Gifu and for station, so it did get me back. But like many early navigation systems, it seemed to have some biases built in. It didn't take me down any major roads. I wound up going down all sorts of tiny back roads. But luckily enough, it did eventually get me to the circuit.
Before we leave Japan, let's check out another drift competition, run by Battle Magazine at YZ Circuit. Unlike the D1 series, this is a very casual event that any local drifter can enter. Since Gifu is one of the main drift areas in Japan, more than 100 cars entered this event, most drivers bringing all of their friends along as pit crew. The number one repair tool at an event like this is a hammer. You can use it to flare your guards. Or to make wheels round again.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing to watch. Chances are that wheelies banging with a hammer is now worth a whole lot of money, but back then they were still cheap.
As for broken windows, just cover them with clear tape. Groups of 10 cars are allowed to drift at once. Perfecting the first corner is the key to YZ.
Yeah, that first corner is really something there. The track is built in a valley, and that end of the track is actually built on top of a big retaining wall. So if something went wrong and you actually flipped over that barrier on the outside of the corner, you'd find yourself plummeting down into the lower part of the valley.
After that, it's just a left kink before a right-hand hairpin. It's a scary entry into turn 1, as you have to go very fast to carry speed at the exit. Unfortunately, the exit is a bit tight too. As usual, about half of the entries are AE86s, but this 4-door R32 is worth a closer look. He takes a perfect line through the first corner, but this Laurel driver is not so lucky.
This is why laurels are so rare now.
Judging by the smoke, we knew this Skyline must have some serious power. Sure enough, the engine has been swapped for an RB25 with a big HKS 3037S turbo kit. Good for an easy 500 horsepower. The interior is stripped out and loaded with extra gauges as usual.
These days it'd be sacrilege to put gauges straight into a perfectly good R32 dash. These days almost everyone you see has got the vinyl pulling away from the foam, whereas that one is actually in pretty good shape still.
After a change of bumpers and tyres, they head out for another practice run. Check this drifter out. It's based on a Nissan Crew, which is usually a taxi in Japan.
There was a bit of a fashion for a little while there to modify Nissan Crews, C-R-E-W. They're a really plain, boring car that I think would have come with an RB20E, so a single cam, 2-litre 6, and most likely manual transmission back then, and they had a solid rear axle, so there was absolutely nothing sporty about them. But I think that might be what made them appealing to modify, because they look so incongruous at an event like this.
There's a great atmosphere at the Japanese drift events, as everyone is just there for a good time. You can wander around and check out anything you like. The green R32 was starting to emerge as a favourite during qualifying. So let's take a look at some of the competition runs. It's too dangerous to run battles here, so it's all single car demos. They seem to have picked up the entry speed even further, which is bad news for some.
The Battle Magazine events were always super casual compared to D1, and the commentators there were struggling with the PA all day, kept cutting out, which actually seemed to amuse the crowd a bit.
The bumper was already damaged, but now it's really finished. Not the best way to treat an expensive house of colour paint job.
It's a classic case of staying on the brake when sometimes you just got to let it go.
Nearly a safe spin, but the bumper just clips the tyres. All the delay.
There's Taniguchi, Nobuteru, who in Japan is better known as a GT racing driver, but he was also a big competitor in D1 back then. And for some reason, he seemed quite happy to turn up to a lot of these events to commentate and judge.
Has made guest judge Taniguchi a bit prone to smart aleck remarks, but even he was impressed by this run. Not surprisingly, the R32 driver was on top of the podium at the end of the day.
That's it for part 4. Sad to say I've actually never been back to YZ Circuit since this event, but I know they are still running there, so there's still time. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe if you haven't already. I'll be back soon with part 5. Cheers.